Good afternoon, everybody. I am delighted to be here with you, and so many. There are 30 of us online, and there are about another 80, Claire, who are interested in the webinar and getting this recording. So just a little bit about me, a little bit more, and what the Resilience Engine does. I'm an executive coach and resilience researcher. The research has been going on since 2007. So we are a sort of resilience specialist, if you like, and we offer resilience services both directly and, for example, in partnership with the Academy. And our philosophy is to make the research accessible to all, that's to all staff, managers and leaders. And we really believe in resilience and its underpinning aspects of performance and well-being. So that's kind of where we're coming from. As such, we didn't get into stress as our first research topic, but obviously along the way, so much is written about stress and so much is catered for around stress, and it has come up under resilience because resilience is a buffer. So that's where our positioning is coming from, and we're delighted to get into it. So Claire, if we go on to the next slide. Oh, so first of all, so much is talked about stress, but I wanted just to point out one very, very basic thing. Stress is talked about as if it's, I am stressed, I have stress, this situation is stressful, but there is a difference between the things that trigger stress, what we call stressors, which exist no matter what your resilience is, versus stress, the reaction. When in psychological terms people are talking about stress, they mean the reaction. And just to be clear about that, the reaction is cortisol gets released as a major hormone in the brain. The brain kicks in and fight or flight. The amygdala, which is our fear center, gets heightened. If it's chronically present in terms of that reaction, the hippocampus, which is our area in the brain which controls our emotion, which actually is responsible for our learning, a major learning center, that actually reduces, and all the electrical signals reduce to that, and eventually if there's real chronic stress, the brain itself actually reduces in size. It obviously has a major bodily impact as well, and you know, I'm sure that you can go on to find out about that. So when we're talking about stress, it's our reaction to the stressors. Now, what's interesting about the new science of stress, and if you look at Kelly McGonigal's work, actually people don't, if you believe that you're going to have a negative reaction to stressors, you'll be stressed. If you don't believe that, you won't be. Our research, our resilience research, has shown those with the highest resilience don't suffer from this stress reaction. They have the stressors, they have lots of challenges that, you know, just like anybody in their life, in their working life, but they don't have this stress reaction. Okay, and that's really, really significant because of all the issues that I've just outlaid. So first of all, let's consider, when we are thinking about stress, let's get a little bit more rigorous about it and think about it as our reaction to those stressors. So let's get into the poll results now. Claire, if we go on to the next one. Now our research, and we did extensive research, we've got, you know, lots and lots of references for this. If you are interested, we can put it out to you, is there are 6 main negative impacts of stress. This poll, which is done with 214 of you through the Academy survey, shows the dominant ones are procrastination and lack of empathy. Now that actually tunes in with other survey results that we've had also. So we're talking about 60% of the negative impact of stress is either procrastination or lack of empathy. And we're going to home in on those two in particular rather than the four others, just because the results actually show that they're really the ones to cater for. If you want to know anything more about the others, I'm very happy to add in against Q&A that we can produce at the end of this webinar. So procrastination, let's look at that. So what is it? I mean, pretty basic. I love this. It's a mystical land where 99% of all human productivity, motivation and achievement is actually stored, i.e. tomorrow. It is the delaying and unnecessary delaying of task or decision. Now, the science behind procrastination and the investigation that's been going on is relatively recent. There is work going on in the US and in Canada, and particularly a psychologist called Professor Ferrari in the US has done quite a lot of work in that. And it turns out there are two types of procrastination. The first is behavioural. And this comes from people who basically will avoid delivering something because they don't want to have their work judged. Why don't they want to have their work judged? Because their self-worth is actually linked to their ability, and if you judge me on the fact that I'm not doing so well, then I will not feel worthy. Okay, so they avoid that. There is a sense of fear of failure here, but it's very specifically related to self-worth. The second is decision making, and I think many of us will experience this in times of stress, is afraid of making errors. Okay, so both of them are fear bound. But of course, procrastination in the workplace, procrastination in life, it has a double loop. It causes more failure. We miss opportunities, we miss goals, we delay things, we don't actually follow through in our relationships, people feel disappointed by us, our reputation gets damaged, and all of that actually leads to unhappiness. So there's been a massive study of procrastination and its impact, and 68% of people who were surveyed, I think it was about 18,000, said that they were more unhappy as a result of procrastinating. And of course, unhappiness is is linked very much to ill health. So, procrastination isn't great. And we wondered if we could ask you as participants, and we've now got 40, is how does procrastination show up in your workplace today? Now, at the bottom of your screens, you'll see a little chat button. And if you go into there, you'll see that it's automatically defaulted that you can send a note to everybody. And let's just hear from you, or watch from you, what your views are of how procrastination shows up in your workplace today. Please go ahead. So miss deadlines and targets. Panic, lovely. Yeah. That's a really interesting one about responsibility and empowerment from Kate. Frustration. Avoiding strategy. Putting things off that you're not so good at, so delaying that aspects about ability. Overthinking, that's lovely. Analysis paralysis, it's a complete aspect of shortcuts in learning, so the hippocampus coming in there. We've got loads here, haven't we? Bureaucracy comes out quite a lot. That's Kim, and I think it's maybe Orla who's coming in on that. Bureaucracy, red tapes and missed deadlines. This is really dominant, isn't it? We can really see that you understand where it is and how it shows up. Lack of purpose, very interesting. So the depth of purpose here. Things like learning, taking responsibility for self, purpose is all a key aspects of resilience. Blaming others, it's a classic under stress. So find another sort of attention seeker other than I've not done my work or I've not made that decision. Blame others. That may be related to one of the others, which is data over people. So I need more and more and more data to prove why I should make the decision. So when the two of them are linked, you really get a bit of a double whammy going on. Disempowerment. Very interesting, the aspects about disempowerment. I mean, you know, you're really talking about stifling an organisational kind of forward movement and sustainable for performance here. So it's really strong. It's really strong. I would love to get into this more with all of you, but we don't have time. So just be aware of all those aspects of procrastination. And as you are aware of those things, be wondering about whether it's because, and our normal judgment would be, you know, somebody's faffing about or somebody isn't prepared to take responsibility or whatever. Actually, stress and that stress reaction can absolutely freeze somebody or freeze a group of people. Okay. So, you know, instead of actually sort of judging, potentially what we have to do is think about how to reduce the stress. And of course, we will offer you some aspects around resilience on that. So great. I mean, really interesting, and I can't wait to learn more from you all about procrastination. So if we carry on and go into the next major aspects, lack of empathy. So much, again, is written about empathy. Just to be clear what it is, in the very extreme end of lack of empathy, if I have no empathy at all, I will treat a person as an object. Okay, and there are scale of that. There are studies done in autism, etc., that scale things up. And in fact, actually, the norm is actually a midpoint on that scale. So none of us are really brilliant at this. And, you know, stress is obviously a major factor about that. Empathy can be learned. That's one aspect also that comes out, is really, really clear. But if we look at just what's going on from a stress reaction, when somebody is lacking in empathy, it may be that they themselves are overwhelmed by the reaction of the other person. So for example, if somebody is crying, actually what happens in the brain is the same areas that this person who is crying, their activity in the brain, the person watching and listening and being next to them has exactly the same going on. Maybe not at the same intensity, but it's the same thing. And actually that can be very uncomfortable. So if you have a stress, if you're under stress, actually you don't have the capacity for being able to deal with that emotion, and you withdraw. So you self-protect in that. So much of the aspects of lack of empathy are actually our overwhelmedness in the face of strong emotion. So it's a two-way process, in fact. It's very, empathy itself is very strongly linked to business results. It's very hard to sort of summarize all this in one go. Everything from Daniel Goleman's work on emotional intelligence. He is part of what's called the EI Consortium, which is a conglomerate almost of everything that is related to emotional intelligence in organizations. And it's really bottom line stuff. I mean, it's really, really clear. This example about Telefonica came out. I just happened to know it from my mobile days. So those who were trained at Telefonica Germany undertook a national program, and all staff were trained on empathy. So what you're talking about, massively listening, being in a state of really listening. That's more than half the answer to empathy. So empathy training, and it resulted in a 6% increase in customer satisfaction within 6 weeks. I mean, it's a phenomenal result. You know, it's just sort of outstanding when we all are spending millions on trying to increase and better our processes. I mean, think of this kind of thing within the NHS. Think of it in any service. Think of it in anything where you're related to customer. Actually, it's really critical for business results. And again, you know, much is said about empathy. It's a recent study by Harvard Business Review in the end of last year, massive survey globally, that they do. The 5 top critical business skills is empathy, and they say that for many reasons. Being able to understand the customer more, the diversity and globalization of business nowadays, actually being able to understand our diverse workforce and be able to listen, and very, very importantly, for innovation reasons, which relies on collaboration. So, you know, we're talking about a core business skill here, and yet stress is canning it. So if we think of, right, well, okay, that's the bad news. What can be done about it? Claire, if we go on to the next one. Well, our old-fashioned ways of doing this was to churn everything through stress management. This is a quote from Alistair Fraser, who is the Vice President of Shell Global Health in Holland. Shell were undertaking stress management across their whole global organisation for years. They have completely turned that off. And instead now they're investing in resilience because of this. So what we see is stress management actually almost inducing a stuckness in behaviour. It's very profound, and the switch to resilience, I think, we would offer as a core way of changing. So again, go on to the next slide, Claire. Our data and our research has shown that resilience is a buffer to stress. So those with the highest resilience, that's what we call breakthrough resilience, or near about there, actually don't suffer from stress. They have the stressors, but they don't suffer from stress. Those in the middle bracket, what we would see is bounce back, for example, where your energies might be going up and down, your resilience might be going up and down. You will have stress reaction, but it isn't as any way, you are not held hostage in the same way to it. But you will lose energy and you will lose resilience as a result of that, okay? So, you know, we're basically talking about if you build resilience, which is more at the source area of how to help somebody's capabilities, then actually stress takes care of itself, okay? So, Claire, if we go on to the next one. This slide here shows you the 2 core models of our resilience research. The first is about what resilience is. I'm not expecting you to sort of read this slide and understand it in any way, but there is a diagram of a sort of spiral here, and that's how we see resilience. It moves, it goes up and down, there are different core levels of it, there can be stucknesses along the way, and what you do at any one stage for your resilience is dependent upon where you are in that resilience dynamic. The second model is the resilience engine, which is about how to build it, and we use the concept of a resilience engine with 3 components. The 2 in the outer ring are sort of being bits, so they are core to how you are, and the middle bit is the fuel in the tank. So if we just look at those bits, the inner bits, these are these pink ones. There's an inner resources, we call it the inner power pack. It's not everything about who you are, but it's about a set of core beliefs and attitudes and self-acceptance that provide almost the potential for resilience. Go to the outer ring, it's the external goal focus. That's about making meaning day to day. And the middle bit is what we call adaptive capacity, which is fuel in the tank. The engine doesn't get switched on until you do it, and it doesn't certainly go until you've got enough fuel in the tank. And that's related to things like energy, perspective, and pacing. So having kind of explained a little bit about this model, let me step back and actually say a few things about resilience itself. Resilience is often described as in the coping or bounce back arena. I'm resilient because I'm able to cope better. Coping is a part of resilience. It can often be a stuck area of resilience. Bounce back is an area of resilience, but it's actually both of those are sitting in a kind of middle bracket. And as you see from the diagram on the left, this whoosh that we call it, and going up to breakthrough, there is another level that everybody can learn. We describe resilience as our capacity for change. It's very, very simple, but it's very deep. And for anybody who is on the webinar and watching later, who is an OD practitioner, this kind of model, if you become fluent in it and understand it, actually it will help you really decide and plan better for how to bring any change into your organisation. It's really significant. For coaches, it's also extremely rigorous. So it will absolutely extend your practice to be able to understand what's your client's capacity for change. So it may affect how you contract. It may affect how much you accept of an external commission from the boss or an HR. As an HR practitioner on the webinar, you may be considering this in terms of actually what realistically can we achieve through coaching. So this is a really helpful model, the resilience dynamic, for actually being able to gauge capacity for change. For shifting capacity for change, then you use this plus the resilience engine. So a couple of bits more. Resilience is dynamic. Even for those at the highest level, you will go up and down. And the down can feel a bit like whoa, and the up can feel fantastic. Once you do have an understanding of your own resilience, you tend to get back to a top level much more quickly. Okay, it's learnable. It's an integrative concept, so our research actually provides a kind of holistic view of what makes for resilience, and somebody else described it as a golden thread, and I've come to really understand that, both at the individual level right through to organisational. It's a sort of inner thread that joins everything up. And using resilience as a kind of laser beam, it often actually ousts the elephant in the room much more quickly than other ways of thinking. So it's an integrative model, it's holistic, it's systemic, okay? It's relying on some core enablers that are the same for everybody. And if we describe, for example, one of them is energy, but how one person gets their energy is different than another. Okay, so although we can describe it as a core enabler, actually the inaction of that for any individual is different. Okay, and the bottom line is, and there's quite a bit of data now coming out about this, is that resilience is the underpinning aspects of all sustainable performance and well-being. So it's pretty big news. And our philosophy is this should be in the hands of people who can bring this out safely and well. It can be made available to all staff who are already probably relatively resilient. So this isn't necessarily thinking about a deficit model, but actually really helping people shore up their resilience assets. And we're delighted to go into partnership with the Academy to do just that, to place it in the hands of people like yourselves.